Welcome to the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G. This podcast is all about connecting the community with the thought leaders of business and entertainment in the cannabis industry. As this industry expands and becomes more and more mainstream, we want to educate and entertain our listeners and become your choice and voice for all things cannabis. Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show. If you are into the recreational side of the cannabis industry, yes, stoners, I'm talking to you, then thepot.com is the online and mobile destination for you. That's right, THEPOT.com, thepot.com. Where else can you find the exclusive pot made of the month? Take a pot quiz and win prizes. Scroll through hilarious memes and jokes and check out the latest podcasts, news, and trends, all while having your own profile and voice in the pot.com forum. Visit thepot.com today and get lit. Welcome to another episode of the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G, and today we have a guest that I'm super excited to hear about his expertise, Mr. Mark Lewis. Mark Lewis is the CEO and founder of Netalico. Netalico is a hands-on, merchant-focused e-commerce development agency that helps merchants build, maintain, optimize, and grow their online stores. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So first of all, give us a little background. What is Netalico? Let's talk about that first. Tell us about what that company is.
Yeah, sure. So Netalico is my e-commerce consulting agency. My background is originally a developer and an IT guy, but about like 8 or 9 years ago, I kind of had a passion for web development and got into specifically e-commerce. And I think e-commerce is a really, really cool sector of, technology, because it's technology focused, but it's also your store. It's your lifeblood. So if your e-commerce site is, has issues or it's going down, that's serious. So I really love working with, different merchants on different platforms like Magento, Shopify, or BigCommerce, and, just helping them sell their stuff and, helping them maintain their stores.
And how do we tell business owners what e-commerce platform fits best for their type of business? Is it by industry? Is it by the products? Give us a little insight into that, please.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a really nuanced question nowadays, but I would say it breaks down to software as a service is the first option. So platforms like Shopify or BigCommerce, they're what you'll probably look at first because they're the simplest to set up, simplest to maintain, and ultimately probably the cheapest. But being software as a service, they do have a lot of limitations. And so, even recently, until like 2 months ago, Shopify didn't allow CBD products at all. And so that wasn't even an option for CBD retailers. So they had to look at platforms like WordPress or Magento, where you can basically set up your site on any server. But something like Shopify or BigCommerce, you don't have to worry about the hosting, but you also don't have so much freedom. So, until recently, when CBD was a bit more accepted on e-commerce, it was a kind of a gray area, and definitely merchants were kicked off of like Shopify in the past when it wasn't so clear. Yeah, so kind of SaaS first, but if the SaaS platforms don't do what you need them to, I would say look at something like WordPress or WooCommerce. And if that's not robust enough, Magento is kind of the more enterprise option.
So for our beginners out there, basically Shopify or BigCommerce, they give you themes, right, that you choose from, and it's kind of plug and play. And the other, Magento, WooCommerce, those are more customizable. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, that's totally right. Something like Shopify or BigCommerce out of the box, it really could do what you need it to do without, being a developer or even having to hire a developer. When you get into the WordPress Magento space, you need a bit more like technical expertise.
Now, a lot of our listeners are business owners in the CBD space. So what has been your experience with those platforms for the CBD business? Which one do you like best? Which one have you seen clients have the most success with so far? And I know some of them are just new to CBD, but what's your experience so far?
My experience so far is Most retailers until this year were choosing WordPress because they didn't feel safe on something like Shopify or BigCommerce, because at that point it was almost like don't ask, don't tell, and so a lot of retailers were getting away with it, but also other retailers were kicked off randomly. So it was very uncertain. But now, starting in the summer, first BigCommerce announced, a whole like CBD campaign. They're like, all right, CBD is totally fine. We'll help you set it up. We have no problem with CBD. And at that point, Shopify was still kind of hush hush about CBD, which is a little weird because they actually even allow cannabis sales in Canada because it's totally legal. So if you had a Shopify store in Canada, you could actually sell, THC.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a nuance. And I think the reason was, and it's still an issue. So with Shopify, they allow you to use Shopify for CBD as the e-commerce platform. But Shopify has their own payment gateway, which essentially just uses Stripe, which is, Stripe is one of the most popular payment gateways right now. But Stripe absolutely does not allow CBD payments. So you can use Shopify right now, but you can't use Shopify's like first-party payment gateway. They do have a list of other third-party payment gateways that you can go through, but there's basically an extra application process to be able to process the payments.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing a lot of CBD brand owners are running into, right? So they develop a beautiful brand, they put all their graphic design up there, and then boom, they can't take payments or can't figure out how to take payments. So what's the point of being in business if you can't sell anything? So how do you see people, you just mentioned third-party solutions. How are you seeing your brands that you work with dealing with the payment issues up till this point?
Yeah, so the situation is, I would say it's rapidly improving. Up until this point, maybe I think about in the summer, most of the payment gateways that you could sell CBD products on were considered high risk, and the transaction fees could be up to 10%. I've seen as high as 15%. So it was like a serious cut of your profits. But this year, Square, as in the Square Payments, not Squarespace, Square Payments started a CBD payments beta program where they were allowing payments in person and on e-commerce. And they partnered with BigCommerce initially too. So when BigCommerce announced their big CBD push earlier in the summer, basically BigCommerce would get you a fast track to that Square beta program. And with the Square beta program, the actual CBD transaction fees are, I think, around 3.5%, which is pretty much in line with most payment gateways. That's a pretty big advantage for the retailers too, because it's fairly easy to integrate with BigCommerce. Shopify has been a little trickier, where Shopify and Square are kind of competitors. So Shopify hasn't been allowing Square to directly tie into their platform for payments, but there are third-party merchant services, like I think one's called eMerchant Broker, and basically that service connects to Square on its own, but it's just like it's kind of through a series of weird things. So I guess Shopify and Square don't have to like directly talk to each other.
Yeah, I spoke to Square recently for one of our partner platforms, and it seems like an easy application and approval process, but they have a bunch of red flags on your site that you can't have. You can't give medical advice. You can't link to anything about cannabis or marijuana, even if it's just articles. It doesn't mean that you're touching the product, but they have a whole bunch of red flags that you'll get automatically denied. So brand owners need to make sure their site is compliant with their rules before they apply, because once they go to underwriting and they see any of that, you're done and you can't come back. It's basically,
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah, which is crazy. So hopefully they all of these payment processors, I mean, it's just a matter of time before they're all going to accept it. But right now, everybody's in a holding pattern if you can't get approved, and it's tough for the industry and the business owners for sure.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of risk assessment right now, and they're still trying to assess the risk of allowing CBD payments, or maybe they'll get sued or something of that nature. When they allowed like hemp growing at I think the 2008 Farm Bill, that definitely like did open up a bit more like legal avenues of like payments, because before then, basically, even CBD was just basically considered a form of cannabis. And, it's obviously like illegal at the federal level. And there's so many complications around like banking and financing if you just like touch cannabis.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why hopefully the Banking Act goes through. It got through the House of Representatives. Hopefully it keeps going and gets approved, because man, it's tough for any of these cannabis businesses. They're hoarding cash. It's dangerous for their employees to be taking cash. So hopefully that gets fixed soon. Are you seeing any alternatives? I know that cryptocurrency or Bitcoin is somewhere, sometimes being accepted. Are you seeing any light in that end of the industry?
I'm seeing a little bit of it. I think it's traditionally been a way to, accept payments without having to have any like approval process. And that's the thing about cryptocurrency that a lot of people love. It's like there's no like regulatory agency that can actually like stop those kinds of payments. But I think, crypto as popular as it is now, I still think it's like a huge barrier to entry for so many people. And if a merchant only accepts cryptocurrency, I think they'll probably have like a really, really a disadvantage, as opposed to a lot of, if you can accept a credit card, because people will go to the checkout and be like, oh, I need to get like a Coinbase account, and then I have to wait 5 days. They might as well like write a check and like mail in a check.
Yeah, I mean, if you think CBD or cannabis has a non-trustworthy stigma, well, crypto has even worse of people not trusting that because people don't know about it or use it. So yeah, you're right there. So let's back up and go over what's Mark Lewis's journey. So, what you spoke earlier that, you came from kind of corporate life and then switched to this entrepreneur life. Give us a little insight into, when that happened, what kind of work you used to do, and then when the mindset switch popped in to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I think, as like a teenager, I was always kind of entrepreneurially minded. Like when I was 14 or 15, I started building computers and just selling custom computers. And at that point, I just loved computers, and I loved, just doing something that was independent. It seemed better to me than like mowing lawns. I was like, oh, I can just build computers. That's great. I don't even have to go outside. But as I kind of got older, I went into the stability of like a full-time job, basically. And so I just graduated from college and I worked some IT jobs. But I really liked the web development stuff, and I was doing that basically on the side since I was in high school. And after a couple of years doing that kind of half and half, or a full-time job and then also freelancing on the side, it got to the point where it was like, okay, I can't like freelance more because I'm just way too busy. And at that point, I took the leap and said, all right, I'm just going to try to make this work full time. If I can even replace my salary, and I would have that independence of like choosing my own clients and everything. I was like, all right, I'm happy with that. And that was like 7 years ago. And, luckily it went really well, and I was able to grow the freelancing into a bit more of an agency. And now, I have like a dozen employees across the US, and we're able to like do basically full service e-commerce services, where it's like design, development, UX strategy. And my passion is a developer, but I've, fortunately found like some really great people over the years of, working with merchants and just working with different people, and kind of just like created what I call like a team of e-commerce ninjas.
Great. That's awesome, man. I love the journey. Thanks for sharing that. So for Netalico, tell us, you just explained some of the services you provide. What's your ideal client? Is it a startup that isn't educated on what they should do properly on their online presence? Is it an existing company that needs to be tweaked to get with the times? Is it a mix? Tell me what your ideal client is.
Yeah, it's definitely a mix. I would say the majority of our clients are already existing businesses. They're not huge businesses, but they're fairly mature. They've been in e-commerce already, and maybe they've just hired like a freelance dev on Upwork here and there, but they're kind of getting more serious. And with e-commerce, and particularly more the complex platforms like Magento or WordPress, if you don't have someone like really, really competent working on your site, can really, really make a mess of it. And then that will like affect sales, and it'll just make your life really messy. But I also really, really have a passion for the startups and getting to work with new entrepreneurs. So I really like to kind of balance those two types of clients, because the startups typically are more work and more like upfront, personal investment into getting them on the platform and getting them trained. But it can be really, really rewarding to see, a business go from 0 to, 1 million or 10 million.
And where can our listeners find out more about Netalico and or contact your team?
So they can go to our website, netalico.com, or just, type in Netalico in Google. Hopefully it doesn't autocorrect to Metallica.
That's not a bad thing either, but yeah, that's fine.
No. Google actually for the first couple of years with that name, it would always say did you mean Metallica? I think it's legit enough now that it's okay, this is a real thing. It's not Metallica.
Well, don't worry. The younger generation doesn't even know who Metallica is. So.
It's true.
All right. Before we finish up, Mark, tell us something that excites you about the cannabis/CBD industry as a whole, and something that concerns you.
I would say it's a dual thing, and they're kind of one and the same. What I'm really excited about is, due to the more legalization of particularly CBD, there's a lot more research that's being done into what CBD actually helps with. Because, you probably know that there's a lot of claims around the health benefits of CBD, but there isn't a lot of research to back up those claims. So now that it's a bit more accepted legally, I know there's a lot of research going into it. On the flip side, I would say that there isn't a lot of research out there right now. And I think a lot of people have to be careful about the claims that retailers are making around CBD products, and really look at what kind of data and what kind of research they have backing up those claims.
I agree. I mean, the amount of, I guess I could say fake products out there is just mind-boggling. So hopefully that regulatory arm jumps in and people can actually trust those products. So I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah. And one of the retailers I'm working with right now, it's a startup, but they're doing their own research and their own studies on their products. And I'm really excited when they launch. I think it'll be really different from a lot of the kind of Me Too, brands launching right now.
Yeah, I agree. And hey, Mark Lewis, founder of Netalico, thank you so much for taking the time today and being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And we will see everyone next time on the Pot.Live podcast. Listeners, are you looking for the only one-stop online platform in the cannabis industry? Then you have to check out MJ.com. MJ has it all. Medical and professional news and trends. Get your medical card. Over 150 free workouts for your health and fitness. VIP membership. 2 different gaming apps to win cash and prizes. Find your local dispensaries, learn about the latest strains, and search for your career in the marijuana industry. And don't forget to get your favorite lab-tested CBD products delivered straight to your front door. It's all at mj.com.